it's funny how people always think that introverts don't like to dance, but I actually love to dance and always have loved dancing. And so recently, well, a couple of years ago, my friend Christina, so as you know, I'm, in my 40s and we don't get that many chances to dance anymore. So my friend Christina told me about this event, about a dance event. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But you know me, I can't stay up past, midnight anymore. So when is this thing happening? And she's like, well, it's like it starts at 8 and ends at 10. So it's like, it's for people in their 40s. And I thought, oh, that's great. So we went, and it turned out to be a very kind of alternative dancing event where the people who went there, and you know this about me, Dominic, my hippie upbringing, we're definitely more like on the alternative side. And you had these baggy pants, and people, the first thing I noticed is people took off their shoes at the door. There was a warm tea and cookies, so it was all very welcoming, but it did feel a bit awkward. We were all just standing around waiting for the music to start. But once the music started and the lights dimmed, and there was a guy who was the DJ, he kind of explained the rules. There was not going to be any talking. It was really just us being in our bodies and not paying attention to anybody else. And I don't know, it was definitely weird the first time I went, but it was also so freeing and liberating, and just doing my own thing and dancing without anybody watching, just really being free. And so what I reflected upon after is how that felt so great, and how I was really being myself without caring what anybody else thought. And I really realized how in my business, that was not so often the case. That often I felt like I had to kind of play certain rules, business rules, networking rules, marketing rules, all these rules that I really didn't want to play with anymore. And so that's the big realization that I had after this dancing event. And that's how the gentle business revolution kind of came about, when I said, well, I want to dance without anybody watching, and just kind of tell people to do the same, to ditch the shoulds and not have to copy anybody else. So that's the dance story.
That is awesome. How funny. I love that you drew out that connection there. When I was in college, it was very much the same thing. I was a complete wallflower going in, but then I found the dancing classes and loved them.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I don't think there's a reason for introverts not to like dancing. I wouldn't want to dance on a stage and everybody watching.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I like your point as well about the shoulds there, and it's like I'm trying to remember how that adage goes, and it's always said within the artistic community, you got to learn the rules so that you know how to break them, and I think that's the wrong. And by the way, this is just conversation here. I won't be including this, but it's kind of the wrong attitude, in that you don't learn the rules so that you know how to break them. You learn them so that you know why they're there.
Yeah.
And what the parameters that they're supposed to be creating. But yeah, we get all hung up on the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and
it feels like we're spending up till 15. We do we are whoever we are, and then we start to learn how to adapt to those rules until probably about 35, 40, and then around that age, we're like, why are we following everybody else's rules, and we unlearn them again.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I think there's some things that have to happen. It's like my wife and I like to joke about our little one, how she has to learn certain rules so that they can be unlearned later on. But you can't learn those later rules until you've learned the first ones,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is what works for everybody else, so that I can then figure out what works for me.
Yeah, it's like figuring the shortcuts. Well, cool. So speaking of shortcuts, let's head into the next segment. Right. So Well, as mentioned, this part here is brainstorming.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like marketing practice. And what I'm looking for is less of a prescription, here's what you must do to be successful, and more like creating discussions with each people in this segment. How would you do it? Like if you're given this challenge of starting a business and the usual parameters are, let's say, 6 to 9 months to see some success, and you can't ad spend your way to success. So therefore, there's probably a lot of networking or content creating or something. I'm just curious, what would be Sarah's process for success? Because it's going to be very different to some other extrovert I've spoken to who just totally was an extrovert. So he would just tackle it differently. The tools he would use are different. And I'd love to sort of just unpack, what would you do? And maybe it's just, what have you been doing to
Right.
be successful? So let's come up with a business idea. And I mentioned like maybe an organic, a cafe, maybe, or maybe you have an idea of something that's sort of broken that you've thought about fixing for a while, or a hole in the market, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
that you've thought about. Any?
Not really. I like, we can go with your idea of the cafe. It's usually my husband who has all these business ideas that, every day he has another one. I'm like, really? I don't think that's going to work.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And to
let's
be
just
fair,
go
you're
with,
doing what, with your business already, what is a hole in the market. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, okay, well, let's say that you're called in as a consultant for, and let's say it's an organic foods cafe. So
Uh-huh.
it's all about local source, responsible food. It's about farm to table, and let's say, so it's a cafe. So let's say it's coffees and teas and then, sandwiches maybe. And they really want to profile the people who are providing, how do I say, the connection to the local producers, the local farmers, so that you can see where stuff is coming from, how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that something you were trying to get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no pressure here. It's just spitballing ideas. What might you do to start something like that?
Okay, so where I see an opportunity is, first of all, to get everybody involved. So not just the marketing, but the whole leadership, let's say. So because I think oftentimes, and we talked about this, Dominic, is it's we go right into the doing, where it's like you mentioned, ad spend, or like robots, and how can we increase
Uh-huh.
the market share and all of that, where I think nowadays we really need to focus more on the being. And so what I would try to get the team to work on together is this idea of, first of all, a lot of marketing consultants talk about purpose now, or Simon Sinek says, start with the why.
Mhm.
That's great. I think oftentimes people are overwhelmed with that idea. So I would actually start with the personal purpose or personal passion,
Mhm.
and really start there to, first of all, get them to understand what this is all about, and then they're ready to go into, what is our purpose for the company. And what I'm looking at now more often also is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. I
Okay.
really like those to kind of tie into the purpose, because especially if we're talking about, this cafe that wants to be organic and really have these relationships with the farmers. So I would try to say, okay, which one of these 17 SDGs would work into your purpose, and where can we start? So kind of rumble on their purpose, so that we can then find, the next step would be to talk about the people. Like in general marketing program language, we always talk about the avatar, right? So how do we then find the people that they want to attract into the cafe? And as we discussed in gentle marketing, it starts with the worldview, it starts with the values, and so that's the first conversation I would have with them.
That's fantastic. So before doing anything, before starting your social profiles and emails and content writing, you just get everyone around a table, a few pieces of paper, and a couple of hours just to talk through why it's important to them, and so on. So once we have that, once that's written down and everybody is getting excited about, they're all pulling in the same direction, what would your
Right.
next recommendation then be?
Then I think it's that creativity, that right brain that needs to be turned on, that you helped me turn on for the storytelling, right? Because I really think that nowadays marketing is and we said that before in the story about dancing, it's not about following what everybody else is doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
following what fits you and fits your purpose, but it's also following what fits your ideal client. So really getting creative and think about, well, which kind of marketing strategies or ideas would work for your ideal client, and how can we now take our purpose and our worldview and put them into stories so that they are attracted to it. So it's really about finding creative ideas that are different from what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then what would given that it's a local cafe, a lot of the clientele is going to be, from the community, from the neighborhood, and so on. So now that we've put a stake in the ground, or we've planted our flag, and we've clarified the kinds of stories we want to tell, the kinds of creative things that we want to be doing that express the uniqueness of the brand, of the people involved.
Mm.
What would your recommendation be then to spread the news to the community? Is there a way that you would do it?
Yeah, I think what matters if it's a local business is, presence, local presence. So, if you, for example, came up with the fact that for you this collaboration with farmers is so important, well, a presence at the local farmers market would be definitely a first step. Um, so really focus also on these collaborations, and in this case they would be local collaborations. So think creatively, how can you collaborate with other businesses in the area and create win-win situations, so that, again, I think the minute we collaborate with other people, we can see and we're outside of our comfort zone, and we see different possibilities that we hadn't thought of before, and are much more creative than just Facebook ads. And so, yeah, I would start to look at what other businesses in the area can we collaborate with. Can we bring in tastings from another bakery, or what can we do to really work on this together?
That's actually a really, really good idea. Yeah, you provide the coffee and somebody else does the pastries. That's fun.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so good. So your primary process is out the gate, not to start focusing on tactics and word of mouth and all that stuff. It's to actually shutter the doors, pull everyone back together, and identify the values, identify the why, identify the reason why it's important to you all. Then focus on brainstorming creative ideas for marketing, for communicating with people, for sharing moments, for storytelling, something beyond just advertising. And then
Yeah.
lastly is collaborating,
Right.
either using that content to connect with people or looking for opportunities to collaborate with other people in the community.
Yeah, the last thing probably I would try to organize events. Some again,
Okay.
these would be collaborations, but bring in speakers or storytellers or
Mhm.
events like that with different. Probably there would be different audiences. Like in the morning, you could bring in a lady who tells stories for kids, and then in the afternoon or late evening, it'll be something more business oriented. So
Mhm.
to really think,
That's a
how can
really
I bring in more
fun
people?
idea. I like that. I always love storytelling anyway, but
Yes.
doing more storytelling at the community level.
Yeah.
There was a study that was commissioned or that was done a while back, and it had to do with storytelling communities. I'm trying to remember what the takeaway was, but I think their overall health was better. They learned faster, they lived longer, because everybody, they would bond around the same stories. They
Right.
would, not only share the same values, but there'd be this resonance between them because they were all animated by the same thing. Things that were important to all of them.
Yeah, I still remember going to the library with my kids, every week for storytelling times. Yeah, it's great memories, and I'm sure they would remember too, even though they're like teenagers now and all day long on their phone. But it's those moments that you probably don't forget.
Yeah. Would also be a great opportunity to bring in the farmers and the suppliers and ask them to share small stories,
Right,
not to pitch or anything, but just to humanize the food source.
right.
Because I imagine a lot of people aren't used to seeing where stuff comes from or who is actually doing it.
Yeah, it's scary. I read that some people, I won't say from where, they actually think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. So it's like,
We
what?
feed them
Are
cocoa
you
powder and
serious?
get lucky.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That was wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And it's really just, every single person I've spoken to does things in a different way. And
Mm,
it's wonderful to, um, just to see where people focus, where they
yeah.
prioritize. It's these segments I'm most excited about because they're
Uh-huh.
they're all about trying to create conversation or give other people ideas for where they can go with their brands, their
Yeah.
businesses.
It's kind of like impromptu, like you have to come up with it on. That's why I appreciated the heads up, so I can, as an introvert, I couldn't have done it just like that. I needed
Mhm.
to think about it a bit.
I imagine it's the kind of thing that you would do anyway, but it's just a matter of now applying it to this sort of
Yeah,
different phase.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Let me pull up your the story prompts document. Okay. So you have this great line. So if you were to go back in time, what would you tell yourself? What would be a piece of advice that you'd leave yourself? And you wrote, I would tell myself to take myself less seriously. And I'm curious, could you just unpack that? Why is that meaningful to you?
Yeah. Um, I went into business, and I think a lot of people do, wanting to be taken seriously, right? That's we we are driven and want to succeed in our business. But I think I often see this with my clients, that we actually take ourselves too seriously, and that actually hurts us because we forget the bigger picture. We forget that we're actually supposed to be in business, or the reason why we started our business is also to be independent and to make our own rules and to work only with clients that we enjoy working with. So that's why I'm saying take yourself a bit less seriously, and people will actually also be more relaxed if you are more relaxed about your business. So
Mhm.
that's the advice I would give myself starting over again.
Excuse me, the corgi just popped in. Oh, come here. Come here. Good boy. Ah, come say hi.
Hello, hello. He's like, who's talking?
All right, go on. Okay. All right, and then thank you. So that was great. Thanks, Sarah. And the last prompt here is, why do you think it's important to highlight the stories? Well, let me rephrase that. Why is storytelling important for you? Why do you find value in it?
Mm. Well, you were on my podcast, Dominic, and it was such a great conversation. I had heard about storytelling. It's not new. I think the first time I was aware of storytelling was somewhere in 2015, 2016, and I went to this presentation of a guy who wrote a book about storytelling locally here in Switzerland. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Tupperware meeting. I haven't, but that's exactly how I imagined those meetings. It was just so bad, and like the stories that people. So he invited a bunch of people to tell stories on stage to promote his book, and they were basically all infomercials. So there was a story that kind of wrapped around some ad basically for promotion for the speaker. It was just like, oh my God, this is storytelling. I don't ever want to have anything to do with that anymore. So yeah, took a break from storytelling until well, you and I met again, and I followed some other people who were doing it in the right way. And so it was really our conversation, though, that helped me see the real difference between broadcasting and storytelling. So the difference by using your creative brain that makes the connection with the ideal client. So really that emotional connection that we're looking for. And I think that's what the conscious client today wants. He doesn't want to be told what to do. He wants to be invited to a conversation. I often mention the doctor's visit. Like today's conscious patient, he goes to the doctor. He doesn't want to just be told, oh, you have this and this, and using all these words that he doesn't even understand. No, he wants to be involved in a conversation, and clearly he has already done his research on doctor whatever website, and so he comes informed. And that's the same thing with the conscious client today. It's all about involving them, including them, and not just talking at them. And that's what broadcasting does, where storytelling, you shared that with me, it's all about creating this connection and having them buy into something. And I'm using your words, but having them buy into something than just buying something. So that really resonated with me. And yes, at times I can still see myself going back to the left brain and kind of having that marketing lingo, but I can tell when I do that, and then I can kind of correct myself and go, oh, wait, what am I doing? Let's go back to this story. So no, I think it's key going forward. And so I really think in the future, the stories are the only way forward, because people are not going to respond to broadcasting anymore, to ads. They want to make their own decision, right? They don't want to just be told what to do.
I love that. That's great. And thank you. I was not fishing for an accolade there with that question.
No, but
Kindness. I love your phrase, the conscious client. It really is a good one, in that we've had this turn in the culture to where a lot of us are now more informed, now have influencers, shall we say, that we can choose to follow, who are continuing to inform us. And yes, we want to participate and not just be on the receiving end. We want to be co-creating,
right.
or involved in something.
Yeah, I'm currently writing the section on storytelling in the book. So, like I mentioned, I will send it to you and have you.
No, I would love to read that. It's always, I get stuck in my own brain. It would be wonderful to hear how somebody else is parsing it all.
Right. Yeah. And I think that it's true that this idea of the conscious client, that's really what we need to pay attention to now. We can't just keep doing what has worked in the past. It won't work in the future anymore.